Hello and welcome back to yet another episode of The Unathletic. We are, as you can see, three very average unathletic men sitting here.
Why average?
Yeah. You can see.
Why are you sugarcoating it, bro?
Let it be. Okay. So today we wanted to talk about something that's going to happen in the month of November. Premier League teams are going to come together to talk about one particular topic, which is the profit and sustainability rules which is applied in the Premier League and how to take it forward. So we just wanted to touch upon that and tell you what our views and opinions are on the current system and how we can make it better also. So just to give you some context, the PSR is Premier League's version of profit and sustainability rules to keep all the clubs in check in terms of their financial spending power. So the current rules, just to give you some context, is that Premier League teams are monitored over a 3-year period wherein their spendings are measured and they are allowed to spend up to $105 million, euros? Pounds, whatever. So they are allowed to spend within that range, and over the 3-year period they're monitored, and if there are any breaches they are fined or league positions are deducted. We've seen it with Everton and I think Forest also.
Yeah.
So just the teams are currently meeting on how to improvise that rule right now. So I just want to give you some context before it, and I'll like to bring Akshat in to talk about
Just one thing, but it's not you're not allowed to spend 105 million. You can incur 105 million loss. So if you've made
Not more than that.
If you've made
so
400 million in revenue, then you can spend up to 505 million in that same transfer window.
It compares both their incomings as well as outgoings, and the difference should be 105 million.
Correct.
Yeah.
But only 90 million from that is, only 15 million is allowed to be pure loss. The rest 90 million, it has to be an owner equity or a bond that basically the custodian of the club covers. But it's also important to know why this came up, right? Because this was not, a lot of people say that PSR is not leveling the playing field in any way. It's not doing what it was intended to do, but it was actually intended to keep a check on the clubs from going under, which is what almost happened to Leeds United in 2000s, where they bet heavy on players thinking that they'll qualify for the Champions League. And when they didn't, they just didn't have the money to pay for those players. So it had a ripple effect. And then we saw what happened for the next 15 to 17 years. They had to come back from League One all the way up back to the Premier League.
Yeah.
It happened to Bolton as well recently in
Derby
2019.
County also, no?
Derby County, Portsmouth.
Administration.
Yeah. I think what you said is kind of the most important point because a lot of, I think, lazy kind of fan analysis on this is that, oh wait, Liverpool have spent so much money, but how come Aston Villa can't spend so much money? And right, we're both
That's
in the
a
same
different topic altogether.
Yeah, but the idea is not that financial fair play is kind of like a misnomer. It's like global warming, right? Global warming is actually climate change. It's not that the world will only become hotter, right? It's just wrongly named. And I feel the same way for financial fair play, where it's not to ensure fair play on the pitch. It's not to ensure that all the clubs have a level playing field. The competitive balance is not something which financial fair play even cares about or has ever cared about. That is mostly to do with as you said, the financial regulations to keep the clubs protected from overspending and ambitious owners. When these two conversations started getting merged is when these big daddies came and started, the oil barons came to the Premier League and just turned the club's fortunes around overnight, right? We saw it with Chelsea, but Mr. Roman Abramovich. But I think the conversation really came to the forefront during Manchester City in the 2009 period when Sheikh Mansour took charge of that club. The problem is that at that same time, UEFA was actually finalizing its FFP, the UEFA FFP. So it's applied at a country level and at a European level as well, right? So just to give you some stats on why UEFA even had this conversation in the first place, right? So they actually did a survey and they looked into the balances of all of the clubs, and out of the 655 clubs, more than half of them were loss making. Now that's not too bad. I mean, most big clubs can actually sustain losses because of the large amounts of revenue they're generating and the rich owners who can always back them out of trouble. But 20% of those 655 clubs were actually deemed in danger. So that was the problem which led to bringing FFP and bringing that into the mainstay. And from there, it kind of grew. We have different regulations for Spain. We have different regulations for England. And I think now we're at a point where the English Premier League has decided that, listen, what we have is clearly not working. There's not... We know that City have breached the rules 115 times, but there's not enough teeth in the regulations to actually punish them for it. Whereas teams like Everton and Nottingham Forest are getting competitive, losses. They're getting point deductions, which, I mean, if it happened in the wrong season, it could have led to the relegation also, right? So, yeah, like as Poe said, it's a very crucial juncture right now with the vote coming up to decide the future of these regulations in England. And it's a good time to be talking about this.
As we've already mentioned, like there have been multiple iterations of this particular concept to regularize and regulate the financial spending powers of the clubs. We've had FFP, we've had a version of it for the Premier League called the PSR. So if you can explain more on the PSR front and what we're supposed to look at now. Teams are convening on November 21st to discuss more on this and how to fine-tune this particular concept to align it with the more the norms that are there in Europe, to align the Premier League norms in line with it.
Yeah.
So if you can just give the users some context on that particular change that we're looking at.
More than the change, it's right now what the regulations are. And I think an important factor that all the listeners should know is that there are three ways a club essentially earns money, right? One is through their broadcasting deal, which is as an umbrella for the Premier League as a whole. It is one fixed amount that is divided across the Premier League teams. The second is ticketing, that each club is individual to how much money they earn from their match day revenue, merchandising, etc.
Yeah.
And the third is their commercial revenue, which they get from sponsorships, the name in the front of the jersey, logos, all of that. Now, what PSR has done basically is that there's a 105 million cap. It's 115, I'm not sure. 105, where you can't spend more than a loss of 105. So when we
over 3 years.
Over 3 years.
Yeah.
It's a 3-year rolling period. So there are two clubs that are very important in this context, which is why even the conversation has come up of changing the rules. One is Man City, with the number of breaches that they have, mostly to do with how they're recording revenue. So it's all phony revenue is what the Premier League is saying. Like they're making sponsorship deals from shell companies that don't exist. Like these companies are not there, but it's showing on their books that they're pumping this much money to Manchester City.
And most of these prices seem very inflated, like the sponsorship deals that they're talking
and it's not just companies which don't exist. One example, because I know it better for PSG, but it's the same concept with City, is that PSG got a sponsorship deal from Qatar Airways to the tune of like some 150 million, where their board of director is a Qatari minister. So it doesn't make sense because you compare that with other kind of airline sponsorship deals or like tourism deals. There was one with Atletico Madrid with I think Azerbaijan, and there was one with Arsenal with Visit Rwanda. They didn't get anywhere near the 150 million which PSG were getting, right? And that is what Amar is talking about.
Even with the long time name branding that Fly Emirates, it's nowhere close to what these numbers
basically,
are being put up.
Like Qatar, PSG is owned by the Qatari state, and Qatar Airways is also owned by the Qatari state. It's their national airline. So it's a very easy fix for them to funnel the money through this, where essentially they're saying that the state, the country is funding money into a club, which is not allowed because that goes into the sports washing category. Let's not get into that because that's a whole different topic of conversation. So one is with City and their multiple number of breaches. And what you brought up, the 3-year rolling period in PSR is very important in this context because of what Chelsea did. So our man, Mr. Todd Boehly, found a very, very significant loophole in the PSR system where players that are sold, you can record that revenue immediately into your books. Whereas players that are bought, you essentially amortize their contract, which is over the length of their contract, you break down the transfer fee. Now, supposing I'm signing Akshat at Chelsea on a 5-year deal for 50 million, I can break that down into books of 10 million spent each year.
Yeah.
But what Mr. Boehly did was, why do I have to break it down in a 5-year period? Let me give out 9-year contracts, which is what happened to all of these players that are signed in Chelsea right now. 8-9-year contracts with Mikhailo Mudryk, Caicedo, and
everyone who they've signed.
So basically what they've done is supposing Mudryk was signed for like 100 million odd, they've broken that down into 8 years. So that's about 12.2 million a year.
Yeah.
And 12.2 million a year over 8 years with the option of selling him within the first 3 years is giving them an option of keeping those books controlled over that 3-year rolling period.
Yeah.
And because it's a 3-year rolling period and you're reducing the cost by that much, they're also heavily selling their academy players, which is a pure profit.
Yeah.
They're always good on the books, which allows them to go and splurge 120 million on Caicedo, 100 million plus on Enzo, 100 million plus on Mudryk, all in one transfer window.
Yeah.
And that is one of the reasons why I think even the conversation has come up that we need to rectify these PSR rules.
So these teams, not just these teams have to align to these PSR rules, but in addition to that, some of these teams who are competing in Europe have separate regulations that they need to, keep in check with, right?
Yeah.
So the UEFA has a spending cap.
Yeah.
So what is that though?
So I think before we get into that, we need to find what the inspiration for this is, right? So what these guys are now saying is that this whole 3-year rolling window, there are too many loopholes. Let's try to tighten this for every single season, how much you're allowed to spend. And what they've done is that based on the revenue which you're bringing in, a percentage of that is what you can spend on your squad. Now, squad includes the coach's salary, the manager's salary, if you sack the manager, all of your players, your signing on fees, agent fees, and all of that, right? So this is investment you're putting into the squad. So they've taken out a lot of the investments because previously you'd have to make exceptions for, okay, I've spent 100 million in youth academy, right? Why should that be included in financial fair play? Because I'm doing that for the betterment of the sport and the long-term future of the club, and you're punishing me for it. So these guys have said that we're leaving all that aside.
That was anyways not there in the current PSR.
No, but they had to make those exceptions.
Women's
Women's football.
It's like your tax filings. You got to show exactly where you're spending it so that you can get an exemption.
I've never done that, bro.
You've said this on camera, by the way, bro. I hope you know that.
No, I'm an honest taxpayer, bro.
Okay.
That's what I mean.
I'm sure that's what you meant. But yeah, I mean, so this system was, I wouldn't say it wasn't effective, but it was convoluted and it had loopholes which people were trying to exploit, right? So now what they've decided is this new concept called the squad cost ratio, which is that, like I said, amount of revenue you're bringing in, you're allowed to spend a percentage of that. Now, if you're playing in the Premier League only and not European competitions, that's up to 70%. And if you're playing in the European...
No,
it's
I think
85%.
you have to play in the European competitions also.
If you're in the European competitions, it's 70% because you get added revenue from broadcasting.
Right.
This year, 9 clubs from the Premier League had to align with the rules of UEFA regulations also because they're partaking in European competitions.
Yeah.
And I think Chelsea also were fined at the start of the year in May or June because they breached that 70% limit.
Yeah. So it's 70% and 85%, right? 85% is what the Premier League is now proposing for the entire thing, right? So that is what we're looking at now. So we're taking away a lot of the complication. We're like, this season last season you brought in this much revenue, 85% of that is what you can invest into your squad. Okay. Where this has actually come from, the kind of, I would say, the inspiration for this is the La Liga's rules. Now, La Liga has been known to have very financially stringent laws, and we kind of look at that from Barcelona's perspective because that's the one which everyone talks about, where they're struggling to register players because of these financial regulations, right? They have done something very similar. Now, what they have done is that at the start and end of every window, they will tell that this is how much you can spend in the next window. Based on the exact same things, the amount of revenue you're bringing in, this much proportion of it you're allowed to spend in the next window. Now, how this has helped, right? Now, I'm just going to read some stats because I didn't know any of this. I was kind of critical because they're like, why are you putting so many rules? Because it's going to become difficult for teams to kind of compete, right? And this again brings us back to two separate conversations. Competitive fairness is separate and protecting clubs from overspending is this thing. So from 2014 to 2020, the equity of the clubs in La Liga rose by 250%. Okay, so valuations grew a lot more in this kind of golden period before COVID hit. The debt owned to public bodies went from 650 million to 17 million in 2021. And the complaints for non-payments went from 89 million in 2011 to 1.5 million in 2021 again. So it's clear indication that this has definitely helped. Now, does this mean that now La Liga clubs are financially very strong they're able to procure more assets? No. But it has helped in them being financially secure, which is
stability is there.
Yeah, which is what is important, right? You don't want your football club to overspend and suddenly you'll just get relegated.
Or have to let go of Messi.
Yeah, but this is again that whole, it's a repeated cycle, right? It's like all in or nothing. When you have a Premier League club with absolutely no restrictions on how much they can spend, it allows them to bring players, star players from outside, even to the smaller clubs.
So that's what we've been seeing over the years
Yeah,
also. And even though regulations are in place, we've been seeing that over the years because the net spend, I'm not sure the numbers are not, I'm going off the top of my head, but I think La Liga spent around $1 billion or so in the transfer market this year. Whereas compared to the Premier League, which is around
4 point something.
4 point something.
Yeah, so that's my point, right? Like because of these restrictions not in place, you're able to attract more and more players that grows the potential product of the Premier League, which leads to more broadcasting, more commercial.
No, but
and that cycle keeps rotating. Whereas in the La Liga, you have such controlled spending that, okay, like with Barcelona not being able to sign Messi again.
Yeah.
This was the only reason, because they were exceeding the wage cap.
And the point over here is that if they went and signed Messi, and if they continued to spend the way they did with that Coutinho transfer and the Dembele transfer, which didn't work out, and Neymar, I mean, it kind of worked out, but if they continued spending like that, Barcelona would be in a pathetic financial situation today. And the fact that they were not allowed to spend this is kind of what got this in check. Now, your point about them being able to compete with the other leagues is absolutely valid, which is why, again, I'm saying it's a separate conversation. Competitive fairness is not something which these financial restrictions are for. These are just to protect clubs.
Although, can you use the word fairness in that?
That's why I said it's the whole global warming climate change. They call it climate change, don't call it global warming.
You can't use the word fairness because as long as you're pumping money and more money to just to be able to compete on a level playing field, I wouldn't call it fairness to the other teams. Or to the league for that matter.
Okay, let me take a step back of why this is good, why I feel what La Liga is doing is good, right? Before the transfer window starts, they give that kind of squad cap ratio. Like, this is their not a salary cap, but this is the amount you're supposed to spend on your squad. It is on the La Liga website. Every single fan, before you go into the transfer market, know exactly how much your team is able to spend. And they have come up with the exact calculations of why this is the exact amount you're supposed to spend.
It's up to the teams to structure the expenditure how they want within that limit.
And just to show that this is a pure financial control, the sanctions that if you don't follow this is not that we'll deduct points from you, we'll relegate you. In extreme cases, maybe yes. But what is it? It's that we won't let you register your players. That also, it's not like, oh, we don't want you to register Messi. It is, so let's say your ratio, your squad cap is at 500 million, okay? And you have spent 600 million. That extra 100 million, you can't use to register players if you bought a 100 million player. If there's a 1:3 or 1:4 or 1:2 ratio, they keep changing that. That's Tebas is a little bit mad, I'm not getting into that. But let's say it's a 1:4 ratio. Meaning that extra 100 million, only 25 million of that can be used to register new players. Because we're not going to let you overspend and make a super team. Because that's irresponsible. You spend how much ever you want, but here is it's a financial sanction. That is what I think the Premier League is missing right now. Because these guys spend and then there's no real cost to it. Like, some people might have a 10-year case running against them. Some people will get points deducted this season. Now, if City also, let's say they get some kind of they're found guilty of 20 of these 115 charges. What is the punishment?
Fine.
Exactly. It might be a fine. Or now people are asking that, you go back and reduce the points, you take away the titles, or next season you accumulate all of that and give them a point reduction. You don't know what's going to happen. So with this system, you're getting transparency that before the season starts, you're not waiting 3 years in the future as a rolling period. Before the season starts, before the transfer window starts, you know exactly how much you're going to pay. And if you don't pay this much, this is the exact punishment you're going to get. And it works as a good financial control.
So this is something that the Premier League are proposing to carry out from next season onwards. And there's also something else that you said about the anchorage.
So I was just coming to that. So we've established that the squad cost ratio or cap ratio that UEFA has it, and Premier League wants to impose across their league and across their clubs.
Which La Liga has already kind of had a similar system for the past,
So that the squad cap ratio is based on the revenue that you're generating. So in terms of your broadcasting revenue, as Amar said, the top teams, obviously, because they're the ones generating more viewers, they're the ones generating more money into the league.
Your commercial is much higher than Southampton, for example.
So for those teams, they bring in more revenue, and 85% of that particular revenue that they're bringing in is a huge chunk of money compared to what a 20th placed team or a 18th placed team would generate. How do you control that? Because these clubs, for the matter, Aston Villa, for example, are the ones driving an additional set of regulations that need to come into place along with the squad cap ratio, because if just with the squad cap ratio, there's no control over the league.
So like you said, like there are two conversations. One is the making sure you don't overspend and put your club in trouble. That is what we've spoken about till now. What you are suggesting focuses on the other part, that how do we make a level playing field so that other Premier League teams also have a chance to catch up. So these teams are proposing another regulatory approach called the TBA, top to bottom anchoring. So what they are saying is, along with the squad cap ratio, these teams are allowed to spend up to 5 times the amount of revenue that is generated by the bottom place team. So if, for example, like the 20th place team earns a revenue of around 500 million, these guys can go up to 2,500 million in terms of
2.5 million.
So like you said, like let's say Manchester United have 1 billion revenue. If let's say we're in Europe, if you take the new squad cost ratio into account, that means that they can spend 850 million in putting their squad, right, in building their squad. But let's say that Burnley have come up to the Premier League and they have generated only 100 million, and 5 times that is 500 million. So even though United technically under the squad cost ratio can spend 850 million, you're capping it at 500 million, making sure that teams like Burnley are not completely outclassed just because United have a huge kind of advantage when it comes to commercial deals and all of that.
But like this sounds like a...
So this anchorage thing, like just to at what situation it is right now, is that most clubs have agreed to the proposal of having another conversation about this. Not at all in terms of let's go ahead.
For those of you who are in corporate jobs, when there's a meeting to decide the next meeting.
It's basically that. So we are nowhere close to being like anywhere near a consensus, because the figures that you said are quite high. I think Man City last year have shown revenue of about 430 million. Man City. So if you're taking a club, let's say like maybe Sunderland, who's just been promoted, I don't think they're making more than 30-40 million in terms of revenue, which makes their cap to about 150 to 200 million.
Taking TV revenue out of it?
That makes the whole cap of about 150-200 million for the entire league, which is not at all possible if you have teams like Liverpool who are going and dropping 150 million on Ekitike, 115 million on Wirtz, all in the same transfer.
No, but also the crucial point here is that they are including the Premier League TV revenue in it. So it will not be 30-40 million. It will be significantly higher.
For example, Sunderland you mentioned, so they'll get like 5% or 10% of the broadcasting rights,
which is huge.
So that amount is considered as a base for you to multiply into 5 for the top teams. So this broadcasting revenue is also considered. It seems on the outside...
Podcasting revenue. We don't make anything from our podcasting, bro.
He said podcasting or broadcasting?
Broadcasting.
I think he said podcast.
No, I said broadcasting.
I'm pretty sure he said podcasting.
I said broadcasting. But okay,
podcasting revenue means they can't afford a bar as the other 2 number 9s, bro.
The listeners will check back and correct you on that in the comments. Please leave a comment for that.
Our editor will do it. Leave the listeners.
But so from the outside, it seems like this is something that will level the playing field.
No, but why do you want to level the playing field? I don't know what it is.
That is the conversation I want to have.
Yeah, what is it with
I
these
was coming
Premier
to
League
that,
teams?
Amal. I was coming to
What
that
do you
bit.
want to level the playing field for?
Because you over the last 2-3 seasons, Aston Villa, for example, I'm using them as a benchmark because they have been the loudest.
Yeah.
They are crying again and again, saying that we cannot compete because even though we're selling our players left and right, we're not able to meet the Premier League's currently imposed PSR regulations. And we're not able
No, are
to
they not
buy.
able to meet the PSR regulations, or are they not able to compete?
No, they're struggling to meet the PSR
PSR
regulations,
and
and as a
thereby
consequence of that, they're not
compete.
able to compete.
But if you look at the details and actual reasoning behind it, you can find that their spending on player wages themselves are up to 90% of what the income that they generate.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I mean, like Aston Villa is not a club that are this Moneyball approach where they're buying these unearthed gems and paying them pennies to like grow. They're buying like I remember this one transfer window where they got in players like Buendia, Watkins all together.
Bailey.
Bailey. All of them came in at like an influx at one time.
So the thing is, they're buying average players for inflated pricing, inflated wages, because the Premier League's purchasing power is so much that random teams, Bournemouth, Villa, these teams are capable of bringing your top talents from Syria, from Bundesliga. But on the flip side, they have to pay way above the actual market premium that those players are going for, the valuation is going for.
So like, okay, like my question to you guys is, okay, like I'm not, like Aston Villa are doing it for themselves. They're doing it for selfish purposes, but we are not. Let's talk about it into like a fair balance of the Premier League perspective. The best kind of example to look at this is American sports, right? Where there is a, let's take NBA because I know NBA the best. Where there is a salary cap. Like any single team in the league can only spend maximum of this much. And also they have systems in place with the draft system that if you finish lower, you get top pick in the draft.
That's a hard cap, is it? Or is it?
No.
So
There's
if
a thing called luxury tax in the NBA.
So it's kind of like what La Liga does, where if you cross it, then you have to, like, you're limited in what you can do. For NBA, it's like you pay. Typical American shit that pay us more. Okay, if you want to cross it, it's fine, but you pay us more. So what I'm trying to say is that the point of that thing is that with NBA, you get teams who get competitive in different phases of their like tenure, right? Like, so for 10 years, the team cannot compete, and then suddenly they will like plan everything such that they'll get 4 to 5 good players at one point of time, and they'll pay above the luxury tax, they'll compete, and then they'll have another low period. So is that what you want from the Premier League?
So this is an interesting conversation because this is what I had in mind too when we are thinking about how this can be streamlined in a better way. Forget about the clubs going under. I feel that should not be part of the conversation only because
I think we're all in agreement that at least in terms of financial control and regulation, it's good. Whatever
no, it's
is happening,
not good.
Why?
Like, let the club owners decide for themselves how much money they want to
But
spend.
then you'll
They're
get
smart
the
enough.
Leeds, you'll get the Portsmouth, you'll get the Derby,
Let us get it.
You are saying as a guy sitting in India watching TV, bro. This is
No,
like football is a community sport, bro.
Okay,
Like,
fine. I understand that. I'm just
Yeah.
saying that the guys who own the football clubs have made money by doing something smart. So they are smart enough to know if the club is going
They're
under.
not
not.
stupid people.
They're
and,
not.
I mean, look at West Ham's owners. How they got
Look at Marianakis from
Yeah.
Nottingham Forest, bro. He's dumb as shit.
Apparently,
fine.
just to add
that's-
context to what he said, Marianakis, since he's taken over Olympiacos, has sacked 21 managers.
Fuck. Forest fans, you've just started, bro.
21.
Apparently, he wants to come as interim manager for like a couple of years. That'll be fun.
That is.
Okay, anyways,
Yeah.
let's leave the keeping clubs under check part out of
Okay,
it.
we're talking purely about
level
playing field. Cool.
And what I think the NBA has done is the best way to go forward if you're just talking in terms of level playing field, where, as you said, there's a wage cap. If you cross that wage cap, then there are certain brackets of luxury tax that you have to pay. So between 0 to 10 million above the wage cap, you're paying 1.5x of the dollar.
It's like your electricity bill, basically.
Yeah. And then higher,
Yeah.
there are higher
brackets,
brackets.
higher you're paying. Yeah.
And what is important about this is that the NBA doesn't keep the luxury tax. It is redistributed among the lower teams of the NBA.
That's interesting. Okay.
Yeah. So this can be really helpful where if a Manchester City or a Liverpool or a Manchester United want to go out and break that wage barrier, because of course players have a limited playing career and they want to earn as much as
Yeah.
possible. So
Yeah.
that option should be there from their perspective too, right? It's a high skill level sport. Give them that option. Give the clubs the option to pay extra for having those kind of players. This will automatically filter it down to maybe 2-3 teams, 4 teams who are willing to take that risk and pay the higher than the higher than the wage cap. Redistribute that money. What it also does is leveling the playing field between, say, team number 20 to team number 4, where from team number 4 they're not willing to pay that luxury tax. So now when a player has a choice between 2 clubs, and say it's between a Newcastle and a Burnley, and Newcastle just outright go and say that I'm going to pay you 100k a week extra, sign for us. Now that doesn't happen. Because that would mean that Newcastle are also going above that wage cap, which they might have to pay a luxury tax for.
I agree with that, but I think you also have to call out the cons from the system with the NBA, and not just NBA, in baseball as well, where all these rules are in place, but the owners of the teams which never do well are happy to be spending at like 25 to 30% of that wage cap because it's good for their bottom line. It's good for them to keep making the money, right?
Competitiveness is out of the window.
Now, the interesting thing about that is in football, you can't do that because you might get relegated.
Yeah, there's jeopardy.
Right? So, to your point, you might get the best of both worlds where you are forced to actually go close to the salary cap but not exceed it as well. And I get your point with that. But I also feel that it's in
football
practice.
is a completely different sport though, because as you said, it's a community sport and the community will not let the owners sit idle trying to get their paychecks out every single time without putting in the required money.
It's not just that.
The biggest club in the world has watched the Glazers do that for 20 fucking years, bro.
No, it's not just
It
that,
happens.
but see, in
But
American
they do have
sports,
to spend to keep the community quiet at least, or their
But
community is
how do they
outraged
spend?
at a minimum.
Okay. So this is the perfect example, right? How do they spend? They don't put a dime of their own money. They run up basically a credit card bill.
They leverage the club, yes.
Yeah, and we're like $1 billion in debt. Genuinely, $1 billion in debt, right? That is not responsible spending. And that is not for us to try and level the playing field because we've been shit, right? So,
We've been shit for different reasons. It's not about the money or
no, but wait, just coming back to our whole point, one major thing that you have to understand between American sport and like football is that it's okay. In fact, it pays you to be last in an American sport because there is a system of a draft where you are picking the next big thing and you get the first choice of it.
True.
In football, that's not an option.
You're relegated.
Because if you finish last, you go right down.
That's the perks of having a closed loop league.
Correct. But also, it reaches to a point, say you're done with 70% of the season, okay? Like in footballing context, you've reached January, February of the season. And now teams are realizing, we're not going to finish first or fourth or eighth. They're somewhere stuck between 9th to 17th.
Yeah.
What is the best thing to do is to finish last.
No, and you're giving American sports, like these teams, a lot of credit because they don't wait until 70% of the season. They know at the start of the season only that this year I'm tanking my entire season to kind of get a better draft pick. So you're right.
And then look at college ball and then they'll probably
they're like, this guy is good, let's tank now. So 5 years later,
like I think 2 years ago it was Victor Wembanyama who was like the name in the draft, and it was literally teams fighting to finish in the last position so that they can sign him.
So okay, like then what do you think then that a salary cap is the best approach to level the playing field?
To level the playing field, yes, but
on one
But okay, now
on one side, but if you're not controlling the way the revenue is generated by the clubs, I don't think it matters.
So yeah, I'm saying let's have both in place.
Because I don't know about the way there's a fit and function test. What is it called?
Yeah.
So with the way
that's for the ownership.
The owner,
and as well as probably to an extent about the sponsorship also, like in terms of what kind of entity you're tying yourself up to. And
so
for example,
by the way, what he means by that is that before you buy a club, like in the Premier League, for example, you need to meet certain criteria to show that you can bankroll such a club, right? That's what he means by fit and proper owner
also
test.
about how they've made their money, whether it is in an ethical way or not. Because, for example, you mentioned Visit Rwanda. A lot of clubs are dropping that sponsorship now because of the
regime behind it.
The regime and the ways that are I wouldn't want to get into the
blood money. Let's just call it that.
The blood money.
Yeah.
So, for example, we mentioned how City or PSG can leverage their influence over the state as well as organizations that are bankrolled by the state to fund in more money and pump in more money to the club. What about controlling that though? Like maybe, for example, for a type of sponsorship deal, like all of these sponsorship deals have TV partner. They have these suffix names about the category in which they fall into.
Yeah.
What about putting, say, like a soft cap on top of that, saying that, for example, for an airway deal, have a 200 million budget. You can't go overboard that.
No,
So my counterpoint to that is that I'm Manchester United. Okay, I have the biggest brand name in English football. I am going to break the barriers. Like, you guys think that 90 million is the best you can get for like a shirt sponsor over the course of 10 years. I'm going to get a 150 million deal with me. What gives you the right to put a cap on the amount I can earn?
Because,
and you can't do that either.
But it makes sense to do that because, like, based on historical data as well as based on what those brands are willing to shell out. For example, Nike or Adidas for a shirt sponsorship.
But
they can establish a.
But that's why you have a commercial. That's why you have a commercial brand in place, right? That's why a Manchester United and an Arsenal get paid way more than a Burnley would from the same company, which is Nike.
But on the flip side, you also get these kind of shady deals where you can't explain why the club is getting that much money.
Like, so that comes right. Like, how do you filter out these outliers?
You can't. You know why? Because at one point, maybe 10-15 years ago, the British government themselves decided that Premier League is a global product and we need to open it out to the world and we need to invite people from all sorts of backgrounds to come in and invest money into it.
We're not talking about ownership. We're talking about these inflated commercial deals.
All of these inflated commercial deals come from the owner that are in custodian of the club. When you have a Roman Abramovich, when you have a Qatari-backed, Abu Dhabi-backed owner, you are going to get shady deals from Abu Dhabi,
but the point is, like, you're getting these shady deals. But how can you maintain a competitive balance when 2-3 clubs have access? That's the one we're trying to discuss. That's what I'm trying to find. Like, how can we do this?
You cannot.
Nowadays, you can't filter out which is the good egg versus the bad egg. Okay. Yeah. So instead of trying to put your resources and effort into doing that, why not just put a spending limit or incoming limit?
You can't do that because that's not how business works.
But interestingly, that is kind of what they are doing with this TBA, right? They're saying that the bottom club earns this much in broadcasting rights. It's 5 times that. Because
that is a limit on your spending, but not your incomings.
No. See, the point, like,
the revenue generations, there is no control whatsoever because
I think
you generate as much revenue as you want. We'll give you allowance of spending that up to 85%.
You can't go to a business owner in any business and say that you stop earning at this level.
Yeah, you can't. But you can control that. Listen, you guys are too rich to make this a competitive game. So we're putting a cap on your spending. And the reason why they're putting this on broadcasting revenue is because the TV deals are common across the Premier League and common across the clubs. So your shady deals will come in, you will get your, you'll get your 200 million fucking Spotify contract or whatever. But you're not going to be able to use that money to buy players, right? So I think they have targeted the right revenue stream to put the cap on for overall spending.
Is it just the broadcasting revenue that they've taken into consideration?
But you guys are like going way ahead with this. I don't even think that anchorage is going to come into the play.
If squad cap ratio
is a different conversation.
If squad cap ratio is coming,
squad cap ratio is definitely coming.
It should come with the anchorage because otherwise it does not make sense whatsoever.
So it doesn't. But it will, I think it won't come to pass because, like Amar said, City, United are like, bro, we earn way more than you noobs. I am not going to put a cap on what I'm spending because you guys don't earn as much money as I do. Which is...
Okay, another way to go about
it. In fact, the 3 teams that did reject this were Chelsea, City, United, and one team abstained from voting. I think
Chelsea abstained.
Chelsea abstained from voting. United City outright rejected it, and of course they will. Like,
I mean, makes sense from their perspective, but we are talking about it from a
and it has to be
from
unanimous.
An ideal
it has to be unanimous, right? It has
No,
to be.
it
No,
doesn't.
no, I
It
think
has to
around
be
15 out of 20.
Yeah,
or-
15 or 16 out of 20 have to do it. But actually what Poe's saying is right. Like, we are talking about like real world as business owners. We're not. Like, as fans, what do you think is like the most fair way to do this?
Don't have any spending caps at all as fans.
Okay, fine, that makes sense. But
don't
on the flip
don't
side,
don't you want one owner like Adam Sandler in Uncut Gems?
no, no,
Wouldn't that be cool?
no, it would, but no, it wouldn't work. in real
Bro,
life.
like whatever happens in the football field after that, it doesn't matter. I want to go and see what bet he's taking next. And how much of a hole has he dug himself
okay,
in.
wait.
On the flip side,
Yeah.
I don't think you'll agree to this also. But how about this though? You can't control the way that you generate revenue, or you can't control the amount of revenue that you generate.
Yeah.
But can you apply the same fit and function test that is applied to the owners to the sponsorship deals also?
Tough. In an ideal world, you could
make it like a stringent audit. Sorry.
But I think those are already in place, no? For the Premier League, that's already in place.
I'm sorry.
We need to cut this out, bro.
Not cutting this out.
Or we give context.
No, we're not
Would you
giving
rather
any
give
context.
context?
I'm not giving any context. No, but I think that's already in place for Premier League clubs, which is how this whole...
No, it's for sponsorship.
I don't
it's
think
not.
so, because-
for sponsorships, it's not.
Like,
He's right.
otherwise, these shell companies that you can openly, like, we as viewers can identify them as shell companies, but there is no stop to those guys having their
But
name on
a
the
lot
dice.
of the information is also private on sponsorship deals. The only
Yep.
reason why this has come out is because it's a public case for City from CAS, which is why we got the list of companies that have sponsored, which is why we were able to identify them as shell companies.
That's
Which
what I'm
is
saying,
why I
make the
like what
process-
what La Liga does. So La Liga does not go and see that, oh, this sponsorship is bad, this sponsorship. They're like, whatever you've given us, we'll audit it. At the end of that, so I'll give you an example, right? Camp Nou is undergoing renovation right now. Barcelona have went and spent whatever those luxury seats and all are there, no? They have pre-sold those seats and they've generated 100 million of revenue from pre-selling that seats, and they've put that to La Liga saying that, see, we earn 100 million. And La Liga is like, bro, your stadium is not ready. We're not going to count that right now. Right? So, this is the level of like minutia we'll have to get into for every single team in the Premier League, for every single sponsorship which they get.
Unless you put a hard regulation across, which applies across to all the clubs.
Yeah. So,
Jose Mourinho will go and show like fines from players for coming late as revenue, bro.
yeah. No, but I think this has been a very fascinating conversation about like what we think is fair, but I'm very 50-50 on this, okay? Because let's face it, the three of us support teams which are very much on the upper end of the bracket. A team which is on the lower end of the bracket, like in Aston Villa, will sit here and crib about what our clubs do.
Yeah, that is there, but
Yeah.
I have strong backing because I support Arsenal and they are, at least to the outside world, as of now, nothing's come out, hopefully, fingers crossed, but they are on the right side of this in terms of aligning with the PSR.
I think he's badly jinxed it.
No,
bro.
not just that.
But there is the Visit Rwanda
Bro,
sleeve.
He's badly jinxed
Leave
it.
sponsorship deals, the way you guys are playing football, you're not on the right side of anything, bro. Like, you
Fuck the world.
You enjoy your 1-0 set piece wins as much as you want. It is disgusting to watch.
I love this.
No,
because I'm loving it more because it pisses every
It
single
doesn't
person
piss me
off.
off. It doesn't. For me, it's like you win the league. It's fine. Okay. You can't convince yourself that this is good football.
I love it. I
You
freaking love it.
cannot convince you. I mean, I don't know how we got to this topic, but God, bro, that I saw that. I had to watch
any other points or what?
As host,
Before we
I
close
have
this
the-
episode.
As host, I have the power to cut you off right there.
Oh, what is this, bro? I'm hosting next episode. It will be about financial fair play only. We'll talk only about Arsenal set pieces, bro. As host, I'll put it, bro.
Okay, Akshat's lost the plot here, but
Bro, I'm sorry. The only plot which has been lost. Actually, you should just name that set piece coach as your manager.
Nicholas
at this point.
Jover.
Nicholas Jover. Bro, I was wrong, bro. That mural which they put up, no, it's correct. Don't put up an Arteta mural. Put up that guy's mural.
Let's go.
Fucking bro.
I'm loving these tears, guys.
It's not tears, bro. We are nowhere. Like, I am not competing for title. I am seeing this as a guy who watches title races.
Just to put you on a stop there, Chelsea have more set piece goals than Arsenal this season.
Bro, I don't give
But that's a different thing altogether.
Bro.
That's a different thing
I
altogether.
am watching Arsenal games, bro. You cannot gaslight me into thinking that this is what the top English team should do.
Any closing points on PSR, guys, before we close this episode?
You sound like Arne Slot, but with a full head of hair. So it's not right.
Just because you said that, go ahead, bro. Thank you, bro. Thank you.
Are there any more views, guys?
No,
in terms of how to make regulate the PSR better, or your inputs on that?
I think like there is no for me, I think that financial control and saving clubs from overspending is a non-negotiable, and I'm glad that clubs are discussing this now, and the Premier League is putting in more stringent controls on this. This for me is non-negotiable. When it comes to leveling the playing field, in a capitalist world that we
go
live
and
in,
win, bro.
in the capitalist world we live in, you can't do that, bro. People are richer than others. It's the reality, and people who are richer than others buy bigger football clubs, and they want those football clubs to win, and that's the reality of the thing. Now, if you want to, I'll put this the flip side. If you want to go the American model, you have to make a closed system. Because Americans would not have agreed to this whole thing if there was relegation.
If their place wasn't secure.
Exactly, they would not have agreed to this.
I actually think that the only way to level the playing field is what the IPL have done and have cracked very well, is that you have an auction every 3 years. That is the only way. In a realistic way, that is the only way to level the playing field.
I do not want to auction Bukayo Saka.
No matter what happens, you are going to have income disparities. It's not only about the players that you guys are just talking about transfers in and transfers out. What about the money that teams are spending on their youth? What about the money that teams are spending on this?
But that's exempt now. No,
yeah, those are not considered.
What about scouting?
All of that is exempt.
No, your scouting infrastructure. It comes under your wages.
These rules apply for what is directly spent to operate your first team squad in the top flight.
Yes, but I mean, richer clubs will spend more money on their youth. Richer clubs will spend more money on their scouting infrastructure.
Definitely.
Richer clubs will spend more money on their data analysis. All of it.
Agreed.
Yeah,
You're right.
There is no limit in that, though.
Exactly. So there is no way that you're ever going to get a level playing field.
But at least to ensure that that disparity doesn't grow beyond comprehensible amounts, because without the anchorage, and you're letting them spend up to 85% instead of the earlier 70%
not going to happen.
Or the 105 million hard road.
I think as football fans, we need to be more concerned about what is happening in the other leagues than looking at the Premier League, because I think the Premier League is at the most level playing field that it can ever be at this point. Look at the French league, look at the German league.
It's a very true point. You're right. Yeah.
Look at all the other leagues. Look at the Dutch league also, for that example, where there are only 3 teams. Look at the Turkish league where there are only 3 teams. How many teams do you know that can come up?
Amar, you're talking about it from a perspective that it is exciting and that any team can win against any team in the Premier League.
We're talking about that is what leveling.
Actually walked away with the Premier League title.
That is what leveling the playing field is, right? That is what leveling the playing field is.
It's not it's the same case. Germany has 2 teams, 3 teams. The same thing applies to
One
England.
team.
Instead of 3, it's 4 or 5 here. That's all.
He's right. I mean, you're absolutely right. I think despite everything which we're talking about, at the end of the day, there are going to be 4-5 teams which run the Premier League, and that will always be the case. And if you want true financial, so leveling the playing field for me is not any team can win the Premier League. It's that
the product of the league has to be good.
It's more competitive.
Yeah,
right.
That is what leveling the playing field for me is.
And I feel like
to ensure that is maintained, I believe the TBA, the top to bottom anchorage, needs to come in place along with the SCR. Otherwise, it does not make
But
sense.
we are talking about something that is not even going to happen, or even if it's going to happen, it's going to be like 3 years down the line.
But Amar, the vote is like a month from now.
And
not for the anchorage.
No, it is for the anchorage.
It is for the anchorage. It is for the anchorage.
November 21st is the vote for anchorage.
Squad cap ratio as well as the anchorage.
Both.
But the amount in the anchorage, whether it's 5x, 4x or whatever, that needs to be finalized as of now. As of now, it's 5x. but what they come up to will be dependent on their meeting that day. But also, like you said, it might not pass because it's 5 clubs just need to say no to it, and I
which
think
they definitely will.
We can count the 5 clubs which will say no to it.
Honestly, yeah, we can.
Okay.
Liverpool, City, Arsenal, Chelsea, and
Hey, don't include Arsenal in that.
of course you guys will. What are you talking about?
We will.
Yeah.
So this was our at least our attempt to try to understand this mess that is there in competitive sport. Listeners, do give us your opinion on what your thoughts are on how to increase and not increase but improve this particular system that is in place. Do like, share, and subscribe. I hope this has been an informative episode and you guys have learned something out of this though. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
See you.